I am so happy to see so many excited faces in the room. I think we had about 280 people sign up for this event, which may be a record. It speaks to how important this issue is, I think. So I'm Lee Rambo-Kemp, the first Vice President for the League of Women Voters of Orange County, and I'd like to welcome all of you this morning to our members and guests here in person and online. We thank you for being a part of today. This is truly record-breaking for August. We usually are happy when we get 150 guests in August. So before we start, though, I do want to just remind you, if you have not already done so, please silence or turn off your cell phones so that we can all feel that you're really listening to us. Today's program is being streamed live via the League's Facebook page, and it will also be available later in the week on our YouTube channel and on the League's Hot Topics page. Now, if you will join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to dive right into acknowledging our elected officials and people who are running for office. So we're going to ask anyone who is an elected official and/or a candidate running for office if you would go to the side mic there to my left and briefly introduce yourselves with your title, your name, your title, and your position. Please, no speeches. We do have a lot to cover, and I'm going to say more than I should, so we need time for that. Please. Go ahead.
LaShonda K. Jackson. I'm running for Circuit Court Judge, Group 5. Remember Jackson 5.
Let's hold applause until the end.
Sheila DeCiccio, Mayor of Winter Park, and welcome everyone to our beautiful city. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angie Gallo. I'm the sitting school board member for District 1 for Orange County Public Schools.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Bain. I'm the state attorney for the 9th Judicial Circuit.
Sunshine Linda Marie Grund. I'm your candidate for Orange County Supervisor of Elections. I know you don't want speeches, but right there is our early voting state, so hopefully you voted early or you'll be doing it next.
Good afternoon. I'm Lori Wirtz. I'm the current Vice Mayor of Maitland.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Current Vice Mayor for the City of Apopka, Diane Velasquez.
Hello, I'm Barbie Hardin-Hall, and I'm running for U.S. Congress, Congressional District 11, and the easiest way to know that is the Villages to Disney World.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Vanos, and I'm running for Orange County School Board, District 6. Good morning, Alicia Payton, and I'm running for Circuit Judge, Group 15 in Orange and Osceola counties.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Lisa Gong Guerrero, and I'm running for Orange County Judge.
Good morning. I'm Orange County Commissioner Myra Uribe, District 3, running for re-election and proud to get rural boundary and annexation on the ballot in November.
Good morning. I'm Ann Copenhaver, and I represent the Urban Orlando CDD, or Community Development District, Seat 4 Supervisor. I've just been re-elected.
Hi, good morning. Jennifer Adams, former League Advocacy Chair and current member, and running for Florida CD 7, former Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy's seat. We're within the margin of error to beat Mills. So anyway, let's go, Florida.
Good morning. I'm Monique Worrell, your elected state attorney.
and I am running for election again to bring this seat back to the voters. Thank you.
You've all been very bad. We thank all of our elected officials and candidates running for office for being here and for letting us know who you are. Thank you. Now for our sponsors. For the sake of time, I'm going to ask that we hold off on applause and acknowledgments until I ask all of the sponsors to stand. I am so delighted to announce that we've had advancements in our sponsorship levels. First, we welcome the Honorable Cynthia McKinnon and her husband Alex as our bronze sponsors. We have 2 bronze sponsors who have moved up to silver status, Lynn and David Berelsman, and Voting Voices, which include Michelle Levy, Lori and Richard Wack, and Charlie Williams. And for our visionary sponsor, Jennifer and Phil Anderson, who recently also blessed us with a gift that I'll talk about in a minute, we would just like to thank all of you for your incredible support of the League, its vision, mission, and goals. That's give them a, we please have the sponsors stand. Will all the sponsors please stand? Thank you. With the primary and general elections around the corner, frankly, with the primary being just, 6 days away, we hope you have plugged into the power of your vote to protect democracy. Our dedicated team of volunteers and staff have been working extremely hard and have been very busy providing tools and information to ensure that everyone is ready to vote by being educated, empowered, registered, and motivated to turn in their ballot. We have been doing many things to help stir up the heat for folks to get out and vote, including community tabling events, candidate forums, publishing opinion pieces in the Sentinel, focusing on our website, increasing our social media presence, newsletters, and of course our Hot Topics programs. We do all of these things to ensure that every voter has the information they need to be informed and to be confident when they put their ballot in. So we are so thankful to Jennifer and Phil Anderson for their support in these efforts. Thanks to their generosity, we are pleased to announce that until November 5th, the general election, any gift you offer to give us and follow through with will be doubled by up to $25,000. So please help us get to that goal. Most tables, I ran out of them, but most tables have envelopes. If you feel so inspired to do so the old-fashioned way, we have ways for you to help. We also, the easiest way is to go to our website. And we are already 8,000 towards our goal, so you can help get us over the finish line before November by acting now. Today's hot topic: civil discourse, not civil war, is such a timely theme. These days, engaging in political conversations can be very treacherous. In fact, at times it feels like you're going to battle. And honestly, I try to avoid talking about politics socially, and you probably know why. I am often met with vitriol, and I hear one-way conversations with people who have overpowering opinions where they get their quoted trusted information from social media and show no interest in another point of view. While political sentiment is at a fever pitch right now, we cannot lose sight of the greater good. And we have to be able to talk to our friends, family, and our neighbors, because there's life before and after the elections. So we hope today's discussion will give us the tools and techniques to engage in meaningful conversations and cross what feels like a big chasm or the political divide. And I look forward to hearing ideas on how to bridge the divide to seek more common ground. To moderate our discussion on this topic this morning, we have Teresa Jacobs, who is the chair of the Orange County Public School Board. She's been the chair since 2018. Prior to that, she served 2 terms as Orange County Mayor and 2 terms as Orange County Commissioner. That's pretty impressive. She has also served on a number of Central Florida public boards and authorities and is a very dedicated volunteer and long-term leader. Teresa will now come to the podium to introduce our panelists and to get us going with this wonderful topic. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That was a nice introduction. To be honest with you, my favorite title in life has always been mom, until about 2.5 years ago, when I became grandma. So, nothing beats family for me. I am so thankful to the League for bringing this hot topic before us. There could not be a more timely or as important a topic as this. When they reached out to me, I was honored to get the phone call from the League, but they told me what the hot topic was about, and I had this flashback to a forum on this subject almost 30 years ago. It was hosted by then Mayor Linda Chapin. And I think back to that forum and the way that we talked then about the need for civility back in the 1990s seems quaint compared to where we are today. You know, we can do better. We need to do better. We've got to do better. But I am confident that here in this community, we will do better. And the reason that I'm confident is because each of you are here. This room is overflowing. And you're here because you care. This matters so much. And the thing about civil discourse, it's not about them, it's about us. It starts with each of us. And that's why you all are here today, and this is why I'm so excited about this panel and for all of us to learn more from each of them. So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists, starting with Dick Batchelor. Dick is founder and president of the Dick Batchelor Management Group, a consulting firm specializing in business development, strategic government affairs, and public policy issues management. Mr. Batchelor, it feels weird to say that. Mr. Batchelor, it's written right here, it says Mr. Batchelor. Mr. Batchelor was a member of the Florida House of Representatives and has 5 decades of political experience. He just published a book, Building Bridges in Toxic Political Times, a roadmap for community leaders, which is available now on Amazon. Of course, everything's available on Amazon. Dick, why don't you come on up and join me? Okay, I was going to bring my cup of water up, and I'm going to have to go get it. Maybe not a popular topic here, but a long time ago, I learned a lesson from then Congressman Marco Rubio. Does anybody remember that? Some of you are looking at me like I just had a stroke. If you're confused, just send me an email. I'll send you the link. It was crazy, right? Anyway, let me move on. Our next panelist is Dr. Joel Hunter. Dr. Hunter is a nationally and internationally known advocate for the poor, the marginalized, and those dealing with disabilities. He served a 2-year term as chairman of the Central Florida's Commission on Homelessness. After 32 years as the senior pastor of Northland Church, he spent 5 years leading a nonprofit that networks with churches and local charities to benefit those struggling in our community. And currently, he's the pastor of Community Benefit at Action Church, and he is chairman of the Pledge of Central Florida campaign. And if you don't know what that is, don't leave this room without picking up one of his flyers. It's extremely important. Welcome to the stage. Come on up. And our next panelist is Stephanie Murphy, who served as U.S. representative for the Florida's 7th Congressional District. Oh, gosh. Come on now. Congressional District from 2017 to 2023. Representative Murphy defeated the incumbent John Micah in 2016 in an upset victory, becoming the first Vietnamese American woman to be elected to Congress. Representative Murphy was appointed by Speaker Nancy Pelosi to the United States House Select Committee on the January 6th attack, and is the founder of the Central Aisle Coalition, which champions common sense solutions. Yay. Representative, come on up. Thank you. And our fourth panelist is Dr. Haley Winston. Dr. Winston is a dedicated educator and community leader with over 12 years' experience at the University of Central Florida. She currently serves as the director of the Offices of Civil Discourse and Engagement and Public Policy Events within the Ginsburg Center for Inclusion and Community Engagement. Does that ever speak to our subject and our heart? Come on up. All right, we are going to start with some questions. We'll start with Dick, and then we'll rotate who we start with. This is not a debate, obviously, but we'll still rotate. Well, on a debate, you have to do this, you know, but just to give everybody a fresh start. So let's start with Dick. Tell us more about yourself, your work, and what you've been doing to improve civil discourse. Now, I don't know if they told you this, but mine says 3 minutes. So tell us about yourself, your work, and what you've been doing to improve in 3 minutes or less. Oh. Thank you.
That's a I can do that. In conclusion, see, let me talk about my book. Let me sell the book. I figured it would sell better than a $59 Bible, so your choice. Your choice. But the book is really the kind of the thesis of the book is how do you convene around issues you agree with. You can disagree on topics, who your select candidate might be at the federal level. You can disagree on those issues, but are there issues around you which you can convene? Now, I use my experience as a legislator, but as a community leader and having been involved in a lot of issues in this community. Give an example. I was on NPR for 22 years with former Congressman Republican Lou Fry, and we never had a debate per se. We were analytical, you know, what's driving these kind of decisions and who should be at the table and driving the decisions. I was with Tony Jennings on Channel 2 for so many years before she was chosen as Lieutenant Governor. And by the way, my book has been endorsed by Bill Clinton and Jeb Bush and Mel Martinez and Tony Jennings and Tico Perez and people like that, even though he's at Georgetown, he can't read that well. But anyway, so the book is the thesis, how do you bring people together? Let me just use one recent example. Back in 2002, you will remember this very well because you were heavily supportive of it. The school board came to the public and said, we have 138 schools in some state of disrepair, and some are falling down. We have no money at all. Can you lead a campaign to pass a half-a-penny sales tax to raise money to build these new schools? By the way, we've tried it 6 times in 20 years. They've all failed. But will you lead it? So nothing like the saying it's failed 6 times, but get in front of this train, right? So we did. Long story short, we brought together the whole community, the Asian community, Hispanic community, African American community. We went all over, and it passed. 2014, we did it again. It passed again, as you recall, Madam Mayor, and then we're on the ballot again this year. And that was one example of how you bring the whole community together and get things done. And by the way, that tax combined over 23 years has raised $4.5 billion. And again, I use that as an example because we did have in 2002 a group called Axe the Tax. And then they were in opposition. So when you read my book, you'll see I want to convene around people. I know who I am. I know the lane I'm in. I'm a classical Democrat. At the age, I'm classic, but then a Democrat. But anyway, so it really gives examples of how do you bring people together. So thank you for this opportunity to chat with the League. I was one of the first male members of the League at the House of Beef with Linda Chapin.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Stephanie.
Well, let me just say thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for inviting me and for hosting such an important conversation. It's so great to be here with so many civic leaders in this community, and an honor to be on this distinguished panel. I served for 6 years in the U.S. Congress, and I got elected when Trump was elected, and there was a Republican House and a Republican Senate, and still found a way to be one of the most bipartisan and effective members. And it was because I was bipartisan that I was effective, which being bipartisan is like layman terms for like being able to talk to people across the, who have different perspectives from you and try to work together. And I think that's critically important today. I also was in the Capitol on January 6th, and I thought I went to the safest place possible, which was the heart of the Capitol, and I ended up about 40 feet from where all the severe violence occurred. And so I know how important it is to turn down the rhetoric in our political discourse, and I know that there's no room for violence in our democracy. And so in my life post-Congress, I am trying to pull together my various life experiences to be a translator, because I think how you have civil discourse is you start from a place of understanding. And so I sit on boards, both corporate and nonprofit, and it's hard for these organizations to navigate a political environment that is so partisan. And so trying to help them understand what's going on. But I recently launched a C4, which is just a political organization that's called the Center Aisle Coalition. And we're basically focused on amplifying the voice of the majority in the middle, those folks who don't have time to come protest Congress. They're working and trying to get along and going about their day. 87% of Americans don't feel like their government listens to them or is responsive to them. That's dangerous for our democracy. And so we do polling, we do messaging to basically capture what the majority of Americans think on a number of pro-growth economic issues, and then help advise on how to communicate those things in a way that's effective. Because honestly, you've heard a lot of stop the steal and defund the police, but when's the last time you saw somebody on the Capitol steps saying, "We want what kind of change do you want? We want change that moves this country forward in a pragmatic way. When do you want it? At a pace that ensures there's consensus building and thoughtfulness. And who are you fighting for? All Americans who need it, and at a pace that if they qualify." I mean, it just doesn't happen that way. So that's what our organization is trying to do, is amplify those voices.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here today. I am an academic, and I'm used to talking to people, but this is such a lovely crowd, so thank you all for being here. So I have been at UCF for almost 13 years, and I've just seen such a change over the time that I've been there and really seen a lot of students choosing to disengage. So it's really been my call to help them find their way of engaging in this type of speech. And so one of the things that I think is so exciting that I get to do every day is actually create spaces for students to work through that I'm being a little bit not so sure what I should be doing here and feeling a little bit awkward about talking to someone that thinks a little bit different from me, but then finding their common ground. So I work specifically with our public policy events, which is something that the Florida Board of Governors says we have to do, and I'm so glad they say we have to do it because it's a great thing to be doing. Those are open events for everyone to come to. We actually post them online too, so if you want to go and see our back catalog, look up public policy events at UCF. You can watch those. And we have 2 more that'll be coming up this semester too. So hopefully you all come out to those. They're free as long as you can find some parking. So come to campus and see us do that. But other things that I work with are we do deliberative dialogues in the classroom and outside the classroom. So we're hitting students in their different areas, whether that's with their professor there or in a co-curricular space where they're learning to solve issues together with other people. But yeah, those are the types of things I'm doing.
Thank you. All right, Joel.
I am thrilled to be here today. First of all, this organization does so much for our community, and it's just an honor to be able to speak in your midst. I was telling Kathy that my granddaughter, Jada Hunter, just became a member of the national board of League of Women Voters at 22 years old. So it's a big deal. I'm just riding on her coattails this morning, and I'm glad to be here for that reason. Basically, my interest in this topic is it's something I've always been interested in. I came into the ministry out of the civil rights movement, and so I've always been interested in those people who were being left out, to make sure that they were included. And now when we have so much othering, everybody gets left out if you're not included in a particular group. I have been a pastor for 55 years, but again, it's an interest in our faith tradition. And I see some of my friends here from the Holocaust Board. God chose the people to be a blessing to all the families of the earth. And so that is the perspective that we want to come into the public square with. What will benefit everybody, not just my group? What will advance the benefit of everyone? And so that's why I'm the pastor of community benefit. At this last season of my life, I have chosen just to focus all of my effort on Central Florida. And so therefore, when October 7th happened, we decided with Allen Ginsberg, we decided we needed a network, not an organization, of people who would protect everyone in Central Florida from attack. With the rise in this anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and knowing our history of attacking vulnerable communities, we wanted to make sure that we gained a network, and many of you have already signed on to this, the Central Florida Pledge. And if you haven't, you can download the app, Pledge Central, on your phone, to make sure that any group who was being attacked for who they are, the rest of the community would stand with them from every sector. And so that's what we're doing.
All right, this next question is profound. What is the cost to society of uncivil discord? And Stephanie, we'll start with you. What is the cost to society of uncivil discourse?
I think the cost of to society of uncivil discourse is an erosion of our democracy. And, you know, young people, I'll just take this for example, young people watch the incivility that happens and they decide, I don't want to have anything to do with this. And so then they don't vote. And there's nothing more dangerous to a democracy than a disengaged electorate. And because our politics have gotten so vitriolic, a lot of people are stepping away from it. And I think that really undermines democracy. And I want to say one thing about this whole undermining democracy. Our polling shows that no matter what end of the spectrum, ideological spectrum you're on, you're concerned about democracy. So Republicans are as concerned about democracy as Democrats are. They just have different threats. The threat is defined differently in their minds. And I think we have to kind of understand that when we talk about what undermines democracy.
Great answer. All right, let's move on to Haley.
Yeah, so from my perspective, the thing that I think about most is the negative impact on education. And so in an academic setting, if you have like uncivil discourse, students feel like that hostility and they're going to not engage in being a part of the solution. And so that's the thing that worries me the most is that, you know, that we are consciously teaching our educators how to engage everyone in a classroom and not just the loudest voices. You know, how are we making sure that everyone is being pulled into and being part of those solutions? And I mean, I worry about social fragmentation and continuing to making people feel marginalized and not being a part of the decision-making process.
Thank you. Dick. I'm sorry, Joel. Oh, you guys sat in a different order. Sorry about that. And I can't see you very well.
No
Joel,
worries.
I didn't mean to jump over you.
No worries. No. Let me phrase it a little bit differently. What is different? I put everything in terms of history. I was a history and government major undergraduate work, and a few weeks ago I was in Birmingham, Alabama, saw the same bus station I rolled into in 1968 as a part of the civil rights movement. And I thought, well, we've always had our differences, we've always had our battles, but there is something so personal right now about the vitriol and the attack and the accusation and the malice. And I think part of the cost is that we are becoming traumatized as individuals. It's not just we're dropping out of the political process, it's that we're becoming paranoid about what people's opinion is of us. And of course, no one has the right to live in a comfortable bubble where they never are disagreed with. And that's not how growth happens. But disagreement, and I think this is the theme of the day, is much different than accusation and threat and attack. And I think that is the cost to the fabric of our culture today.
Thank you. Dick.
A few things. I think social media has really had a profound impact, and not to mention Elon Musk, not to personalize it, but what Elon Musk is doing, what he's doing in social media, where people have the platform to post things that cannot be debated in kind. That's a big threat, in my opinion, that people don't think they have the opportunity to voice their opinions anymore. The other thing that compounds that is the Citizens United case. Had to be one of the worst Supreme Court decisions ever. You recall the Supreme Court basically said that a corporation as an individual, well, Thomas Jefferson wrote about persona ficta versus the natural person. Persona ficta being a fictitious person, which is a corporation, as discerned from an individual who had individual rights. When the court made that ruling that corporations have unfettered ability to fund campaigns and fund campaigns and fund campaigns with essentially no limitations, what happens to that? anytime you see an exponential increase in the ability of one party to have influence over election, you see a diminution of those people who think they had influence. So you go, what the hell? My influence doesn't matter. There's also another thing, and I'll close with this. The other thing is what I've coined a phrase called intellectual laziness. It's not about me, but intellectual laziness. But it is about people who get up in the morning, they turn on a certain station, and they take it in, they regurgitate it throughout the day, and if you say, oh, by the way, Steffi, by the way, I have another opinion, well, I don't want to hear that opinion. So there's an intellectual laziness, so I think you combine that in the social media and the people who don't think they have influence because of the exponential influence of corporations, I think really taps it down. And that's why forums like this are so good to keep people inspired about your vote does count.
All right, thank you. Stephanie. Haley. Oh gosh, y'all are messing with me.
Teresa.
Dick. So Dick, did everybody get a chance to, somebody bring me a pen. Okay, thank you. So Dick, the next question, you went a little over your time, and the next question is, I may not be able to keep track of who's on first, but I can keep track of how long they're there.
How long they were on first.
And the next question is, and Dick's already answered it, so I think we're going to skip him. No, I'm just kidding you. The next,
make it true and false. I can do that.
In 30 seconds or less?
Less.
Okay. How has disinformation and misinformation, particularly in social media and with algorithms, increased incivility? So,
yeah, I think I just ditto. I think I answered that question. But let me just take this 28 seconds and say, I'm so impressed with this crowd. Crowd's size matters, and I just want somebody to take it. And then this crowd is huge.
Water up, I just spilt it all over everything. Any more mistakes I make, I'm blaming on the water. I'm going to blame it on you. Okay. Stephanie.
I think social media allows people to live in ideological cul-de-sacs. Yep. And because there's this fear of being judged for your political perspectives, you kind of safely build a home inside that ideological cul-de-sac. And when you do engage somebody who is from outside the neighborhood, the interaction can be a bit terse, and it's not a normal connection between human to human. And I think that's erosive to our civic discourse, but also to our community building and the ability to relate to one another. And but I will also say that there are forces that are amplifying these ideological cul-de-sacs and keeping people in them. And those forces aren't always domestic forces. Foreign adversaries find a divided America a weak America. And so it's in their best interest to continue to sow discord. And so you may think you're debating, a fellow American online. You probably are not. You're probably debating a bot or some sort of foreign influence. And so I think we have to all understand that as we engage online, is that, and for me, our democracy belongs to Americans. It belongs to fellow Americans having the debates over policy and then moving forward united as a nation.
Thank you. Haley, great job.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always am thinking of ways of combating this and teaching how do we not put ourselves in echo chambers, and how do we make sure that we're going out and finding information that's different from what we're seeing constantly. And so one of the ways is I teach is that you have these perception gaps between this is what I know to be true, and I am only going to believe what you tell me that confirms what I already know. Confirmation bias, right? Like if I already know know this to be true, then it's true. If you say something else, you could have all the facts in the world, it doesn't matter. But really going out and seeking out people that have different worldviews from yourself. Going out, seeing why they believe that is different from you, not to change your own opinion, but to understand where other people are coming from, is really going to open up what you're thinking. And actually tell students, go out there and follow some people that are different from you. Go out there on social media and look for people that have differing opinions and see why they're having those opinions. Of course, with disinformation, we're teaching students to go to the root of that information and see where it's coming from. Is it a reliable source, and teaching them the skills to actually dig deeper instead of just taking everything for surface value.
Wonderful, thank you.
I'm not sure I have a lot to add to that, except just a thought. We belong to a culture where there is an approval addiction. That is, we gauge how we're doing by how many likes we get on social media. And so it's not just the common sense, I need further truth, which by definition is not the one I already have. My mama used to say, if you're hanging around with people who always agree with you, you're not necessary, they're not necessary, or you're not necessary. And so you can't grow that way. But what we have to do is we have to understand our own propensity and our own insecurities, that we want to be affirmed rather than we want to learn. And it's not until you say, no, knowledge is more important than just my own personal sense of security, that you're really going to grow.
All right, Haley, we're going to start with you. So what are some techniques that people can use during difficult conversations to achieve better results?
Yeah, so I have some actual tips for you. So the number one is let go of winning. So if you come to a conversation as a warrior and you're like, there's a win and there's a lose, let go of that. Come to it as an explorer and have that mindset of like, I want to understand. So that leads me to the second thing, which is ask questions to understand. Genuinely be curious and asking questions to figure out where the other person's coming from. I would say the other thing is to share your own story. If you want to connect with someone, get to that emotional essence of what it is, tell your story, because you're going beyond just facts. And then ask the other person to share their story too, because you're going to bring down that like, I just want to win in them as well. If you are connecting to someone on that level of like, let's share stories, let's figure out where we're coming from. And then make sure that you're being heard by the other person, but also make sure that you're hearing what they're having to say. Slowing down and using your listening skills is actually a great thing. And so, and then looking for what you share. Find what is shared between you instead of just focusing on what you have as differences, because you'll probably find out you care about the same issue, but you're just caring about it through a different lens.
Wonderful, thank you. Joel.
So let me tell you about a conversation I had. Some of you know I was President Obama's spiritual advisor for 8 years. And I can remember a conversation with him in the Oval Office. It was just he and I, and we were discussing an issue. I can't even remember what the issue was. But I quoted scripture, which that's what I do. And he said something that really changed my perspective. He said, that's true and that's good, but until you can say that in language that everybody would use, we can't use it. We've got to recognize that truth is not enough. To communicate, it has to be framed in a way people perceive it is their own value and it is to their own benefit. And so it's important, it's incumbent on us, if we're going to build bridges, and I would recommend Dick's book, It's important that we understand that we have the responsibility not just to speak to our group. You know, in my group, there's nothing more inspirational and powerful and authoritative than Scripture. But in the rest of the world, that's not the case. And so let me give an example. Probably the most oft-used phrase in Scripture is fear not. Now, if I say, well, the Bible says fear not, that may accord with a certain number of you. But if I say, as the Central Florida Pledge does, check out the table on your way out, no one in our community should have to live in fear because of who they are, that's going to get a much broader resonance, isn't it? And so I think it's just really important for us to frame what we say and the truth we think we have in general terms.
To follow up on what Joel has said, some good examples, find things, again, set aside, there's some things that I will never agree on with some people who I'm going to invite to this discussion, but if they're innately toxic, don't invite them. Not everybody has to be at the table, but invite all the people that you can to the table. But find issues that are really nonpartisan. I mean, I'm involved in Project Opioid as a co-chairman of that. Opioid and fentanyl does not discriminate. Fentanyl is 50 times more powerful than heroin. It kills Democrats, Republicans, unregistered voters. I mean, fentanyl is that. So that is not a political issue. It's not a partisan issue. So can you convene around that issue? Human trafficking is another issue with which I've been involved for some time. That is a nonpartisan issue. That's an issue the Democrats, Republicans, left wing, right wing can agree on. Domestic violence, child abuse. So you can find issues. And I think one of the best examples, and you were involved in this, I keep calling Madam Chairman. I called you Madam Mayor. Don't tell Jerry, Madam Chair.
But they rhyme.
Okay, but I would say that you can find issues around which you could agree. And this community came together, and Joel was involved too. After 49 innocent people were killed at the Pulse nightclub, and Congresswoman, you were involved in that too. But how the community came together and set aside their differences on so many things and convened around that one episode of those. Almost an untimely death, but they were murders. But the community came together in so many ways that were good, and really showed how the community can come together on issues that are important.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. That was an amazing time in the history of this community. All right. We're going to start with, no, I'm sorry, Stephanie, please.
I don't know that I have too much to add, and I guess that's odd for a politician or maybe a recovering one to say, is that that it hasn't already been said, but I still need to say it. But I agree with my co-panelists that, coming from a place of understanding the language in which you communicate and finding common ground are always in which you can do this. And I think that's in large part what Senator All is trying to do, is really provide the data and the facts around an issue and really understand voter sentiment, and also how to talk about issues, understanding people's different perspectives. You can talk about climate change or you can talk about energy efficiency, right? And that appeals to different people, but that's ways that you can find common ground and keep moving forward.
All right. We're going to go and take, if I can just pause for a minute. We touched on Pulse for a minute, and I mentioned it was a remarkable time in our community. It was a horrific time in our community. It was a tragic time. It was a very dark time. But in spite of how horrible that was, this community was amazing in their response. And that's what I meant by remarkable. Not for 1 minute that the actions and the loss of those 49 souls was remarkable, but how this community, from all angles, all of our religious leaders, from every denomination that you can think of all came together and spoke publicly, and Joel was one of those, in support of those people who so often religion has condemned. So it was, from that standpoint, a remarkable display of the character and content of our community. So with that, Joel, the next question, is there a superpower that turns down the temperature on rhetoric? And if so, what is it and why?
That's an unfair question. That's an unfair question to ask a minister.
Joel, you have 1 minute.
I can do it.
It's almost funny.
I can do it. The superpower is curiosity. To be really curious about what people, not just what people think, but why they think that. Curiosity is a dynamic that automatically creates a sense of respect for the other person, because you're trying to find out more about them, and B, a sense of growth in us because it broadens our understanding and widens our perspective. So my superpower, or what I would label a superpower, is curiosity.
Thank you. Wonderful. Dick, we're going to go to you.
Oh my gosh, I go with table number 1. I actually, to comment on that, I had never thought about that being a superpower, but it makes a lot of sense, because people, when you engage them, you really want to know things about them that you don't know about them, number 1. And number 2, so as you open this conversation, let them lead that conversation. Let them invite themselves into the conversation, because people want to know. People want you to know how they feel about things. So I think I'll go with answer number 1, and I'll stick with that.
All right. Stephanie.
I would say a deep breath. So what I mean by that is that I know that a lot of people watch cable news or network news all day long. That's not healthy. And I say that as somebody who's a paid contributor. You can catch me on the BBC and other networks. But, you know, when you watch and you're constantly consuming this news, it can feel like every vote, every policy decision is existential. And when you start looking at opposing views as existential to your existence, it makes it really hard to create the room and the space for the understanding and for the curiosity. I don't care what you think, because what you think is going to kill me, right? And so that is like a really difficult corner to back yourself into. And so, you know, I would do town halls often, and people would come up all wound up, and I'm like, you watch a lot of TV. How about take a 3-day break from it and take a deep breath? It's going to be okay. And I do think that. I mean, it is going to be okay. Whoever wins this election, whatever policy, it's going to be okay. We're going to keep moving forward. We have through tough times before as Americans. And so I would recommend to take lots of deep breaths from here to November.
So you want the crowd to hyperventilate. All right, Haley, to you.
Yeah, so I definitely think asking questions is the greatest way, but the superpower I would impart on you is intellectual humility. So if you are intellectually humble, you expect that being wrong is like a part of your life, right? You're expecting that it's going to happen. If you are intellectually humble, you take criticism really well, right? And that makes you someone people like to be around and like to engage with, right? And then if you're intellectually humble, you see moments of being wrong as an opportunity to grow and improve. So if you take intellectual humility with you throughout your life, I think it's just going to help in these situations. And a side note, studies have proven that people that are intellectually humble are more attractive. So I'd highly recommend trying it out.
political and dating tips.
All right, our last round is a lightning round, and let's do this. Let's start at the far end and work your way over here. So we'll start with you, Joel. 1 minute or less. What are some words or phrases that you avoid because they shut down dialogue? And conversely, what are words or phrases that you use to open up discussion?
That's oh gosh, okay. Words to avoid are ultimatum words, all the time, all this group, absolutely, it's right or wrong, it's clear to everybody, we're all going to die if, those kinds of things. Conversely, I think words that open up are, what do you think? Why do you think it? What in your background brought you to where you are right now? Tell me what you would do, what you think is the right move at this point, and this piggybacking on what Haley said. I'm not asking to get you someplace. I'm asking so that I can learn, because I need to learn.
Thank you. Wonderful.
I would say avoid, so I said you should be asking questions, but avoid questions that are laced with judgment. So questions like, how much do you really know about that topic anyway, right? Or questions that are like thinly veiled advice, like, why don't you just ask somebody who knows more and get back to me, right? So leave your judgment and your advice at home and ask open-ended questions. Ask questions that are inviting complexity, that are more than like a yes or no answer, that you're going to really and truly bring out someone's story and get to know them a little bit better. I'm going to try to defy the politician's stereotype of a long answer and just say, on the avoid, 3 words, you are wrong, and on the do, tell me more.
Very good. Very good.
And single cat lady. Those are the 3 I would go. 4 of those. I just want to get that in. Don't start with that. Being a little bit redundant as on the previous question, but I think people want to be engaged with and not talk down to, or maybe not even talk to till you engage them. Because otherwise, if you headlong go into something and this is your opinion, this is the way it's going to work, this is the way it's always going to work, that does not engage anybody into a conversation. You have not gotten them, you've not emoted them to respond and say, okay, now I'm leaning in. I want to listen to your conversation. So I would, at the risk of being redundant, basically say, Enrique, let people know they're engaged. Now, some people, you'll never engage. I get that. And so you don't invite people who are innately toxic to the conversation.
All right. Thank you all. All right, now the fun part. So Tiffany is going to join us, I think at the far end, or are you taking over? You have a podium over there? Great. And we are going to take questions from the audience.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm back.
Thank you, Tiffany. A question for each of you. Let's say you were hired as a consultant to offer advice to this one group, picking up on the theme of curiosity and bridging so that more people understand the allure. And the group is Christian nationalists.
Well, this is right up my alley. I belong to a national network of pastors who are very concerned about Christian nationalism, which, for those of you who aren't familiar, basically it is using religion not as a form of service, but as a form of power, and gaining power over other groups. And so as a consultant, first of all, I would warn us, not all Christians who are patriotic are Christian nationalists. There are just some who are really concerned about our country. And so that's where the curiosity comes in and is so important. Okay. And it's, thank you, so important, I'm very shy. And it's so important because, as any consultant will do, you have to get to know exactly who you're talking to if you're going to be accurate in your advice or your comments. And so when you're talking with people who may be a Christian nationalist, you just need to start asking them questions so that you can be more precise in speaking to them personally rather than debating them ideologically.
The only other thing I would add to that, because Joel is the expert, but I would point you, in case you don't have a Christian nationalist neighbor that you could talk to, but I'd point you to a book by Tim Alberta called The Kingdom, the Power, the Glory. He did an incredible job kind of profiling how this movement got intertwined with the modern Republican movement, and it's worth a read.
It's a terrific book, yeah.
Representative Murphy, as a member of the Select January 6th Committee, I wondered if you have thoughts or feelings about the continued mis- and disinformation that continues to circulate surrounding the events of that day.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, and you don't have a paddle, so I can consume the rest of my time. I'm just kidding. So what I will say is that I'm deeply concerned, and I'm deeply concerned because I'm worried about the next election. And, you know, it appears that this election, no matter which way it goes, is going to be very, very tight, like narrowly won. And I spent a lot of time trying to understand how it got to be that average Americans found themselves in Washington trying to storm the Capitol. And some of these people genuinely believed that they were being patriotic because they believed that there was something amiss. And the way our system is set up, it creates the opportunity for disinformation and misinformation about how elections should be carried out, because every state gets a chance to run their own election the way they want to. And so when I look at Georgia and it doesn't look the way Florida ran its election, and I don't know these arcane rules, I might say, well, they shouldn't still be counting votes. That's stealing votes, right? So you can see where some of these people bought the narrative that something was awry, and they thought they were coming to defend democracy, going back to my point of the threat means something different to different people. And so I'm deeply concerned, and I think the continued decision by electeds and people running for office to continue to push the narrative that there was something amiss about the last election sets the battlefield, so to speak, for contesting this future election. But we all have a responsibility in this country to, battle it out at the ballot box. And then when the courts have decided and we know what the outcome is, to unite as a nation and keep moving forward.
I'm an old lady. It's been over 20 years since I've been president of the Orange County League of Women Voters. I try very hard not to be angry, but it just amazes me when I hear things like, everybody knows illegal aliens are voting when we know they're not voting. And, it just is the kind of stuff that's just so outrageous and makes my head want to explode. And I guess my question to everybody on this panel is, how do you keep from being angry in a situation like this?
Nobody wants to take it. Well, I was just going to say, I always figure out where that's coming from. Like, if it's your neighbor that's literally saying that to you, I go, why do you think that? Like, where does that come from? And then I'm trying to dig into and not necessarily change their mind, but figure out where that's coming from and trying to see what other pockets of disinformation are coming out there. So I'm always leading with the curiosity of why is that such a big thing? And what can I do to help stop that flow of disinformation?
And I wouldn't try to suppress what is a legitimate anger. Of course, we have a response that's angry at deliberate misinformation taken as disinformation, because this person obviously probably really believes what they say. The question isn't, are we initially angry? The question is, what do we do with that? And how will we channel that into something that is more productive because it happened than if it never happened at all? So you feel what you feel. That's all good. But what you do with that is really important as to whether that becomes a detriment or an attribute for the future.
If I might add a couple things to that. Again, it's not some of what we say, all probably to you maybe sound naive. It's come by, everybody's going to get together, they're going to set aside their major differences, particularly with the Christian nationalists. That's not going to happen. There are people that I will never agree with, that will never be at the table, don't want to be at the table, they want to burn the table. They want to burn the table, they want to be at the table. And according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, if the Jews or the lasers would quit starting forest fires, things would be better. Well, so you can't, how do you have a conversation around that? You just can't. There are some people who are so rabid, so radical. And I left one denomination because they spoke about women being involved in the church, and I was a co-sponsor of Equal Rights Amendment, so I thought it was kind of a contradiction for me to be engaged in a church that didn't think women should have rights to vote. So I left. So the nationalists, the Christian nationalists, anytime somebody believes that it's from God's mouth to their ear, I get a little nervous. And I get particularly nervous when a candidate says, I pray for God, which he did. He said, I pray for God. And I'm sure God really appreciates that divine intervention very much so. But there are some people that, because of where they are, they're not going to engage. They're so toxic, they're innately toxic, and they've got their mindset. And those people will not, they just won't be at the table. You can't. I don't want to sound naive.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Vince Eugene. I want to ask more of a direct. I know one of the questions to the panel was, I think, or more so, one of the responses was to maybe cast a wide net in terms of communication and understanding. I kind of wanted to ride that wave a little bit. I founded a nonprofit that provides housing, employment, education, and mental health services to youth that are in and aging out of foster care. And in trying to scale that nonprofit and trying to drive that narrative, I often end up in different rooms, Republicans, Democrats, and those who are somewhere in the middle. When scaling as a leader, when you're scaling and you're in the room with a bunch of very impressive people that have a very finite understanding of the other side, how do you communicate without, maybe the good book would say, is to stand in the gray or just kind of like being lukewarm, right? How do you avoid that kind of language and being seen in that light when your issues are more so nonpartisan? If that makes sense.
I'll jump in first, and I'd love to hear from everybody else. You've got a wonderful mission. I mean, what you're doing here is the convergence of several crises in our community. So I would just make sure that I keep restating that mission because there's a certain moral equivalence here that 99% of the people would agree to. As soon as you get off that mission onto, strategy or whatever, then you can diverge and you can get lost in devil's in the details. But if you stay on your mission statement and you walk into a room of wildly divergent people and say, how would you help with this? You will probably, A, get way many more supporters, and B, some really good ideas. So just keep focus on your mission statement.
I mean, I would add telling stories that are specific, because you can connect more with a story than you can with facts and figures. So helping someone understand maybe what you're reading the room that they don't get through a story of something that actually happened is something you could do as well.
That's good.
And in politics, we always say values unite, policies divide. And so stay focused on your values. And as Haley said, those personal narratives are incredibly...
Values unite and what?
Values unite and policies divide. And so, stay issues divide, basically. Values unite, issues divide. And I can't tell you how powerful personal narratives are on trying to move things forward.
Hi, folks. Thank you so much for your wisdom and help in all this. Darrell Briscoe, Dean of Religious and Spiritual Life at Rollins College. My PhD is in American history, specifically civil rights movement. And I'm hearing a lot of Gen Z, a lot of young kids talk, or rather quote the famous James Baldwin saying of disagreement. Many of us know that quote, right? We can agree to disagree and still love each other, unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of humanity and right to exist. And it seems like a lot of young, it's a powerful quote. And I admire the conviction that a lot of these young people have. What would you say to them? Mr. Batchelor, I know you did touch briefly on that a couple minutes ago, but what would you say to young people saying to us that, hey, the ancestors, the generation before us, did not acquiesce to Theodore Bilbo's and Bull Connors and Eugene Talmadge's. They drew a line in the sand and they went down to Mississippi. They went down to Alabama and they said that we're going to fight. What do you say to them in light of that James Baldwin quote?
Go ahead, Dick.
Okay. Was it The Fire Next Time? Was that the book? Okay, just want to be sure I got it right. Okay, yeah, obviously an incredible quote. Well, I grew up in the South, in North Carolina originally, so I saw the whites only and colored drinking fountains and Greyhound bus station. My parents were sharecroppers, tenant workers, and we worked with blacks, but they were field hands. So that's the kind of the juxtaposition. I did not meet and befriend a black until I joined the Marine Corps in 1966, and my best friend, the late James Johnson, and I had a lot of conversations, and he really educated me on the issue, the race issue, not the civil rights issue, because he wasn't involved in it. But at campus, when I got involved at campus, I got involved with the Congress of Racial Equality and worked with them on a number of issues. So I recruited African Americans who would run for office in 1972 when they weren't going to win, because this is prior to single-member districts, but you really wanted candidates out there messaging. I worked to get the voter registration books out of the supervisor elections office and out into the community, and you'll love this. The supervisor election at the time was Dixie Barber. Dixie was her name. And she said, well, I can't put the voter registration books out in the minority communities because if you register them, to vote, the next thing you know, they're going to be voting. I think that was my point to begin with, but you saw it from a different perspective. So I grew up in that, and in the civil rights movement in the late 60s and all. So I think I can juxtapose or some historical perspective about from whence I came, where I am. You don't have to be. In fact, one of my chapters in the book says you don't have to be who people think you are. Or you don't have to be who people think you have become. So I really appreciate it. So I think I could use some of my historical perspective and then my legislative experience working on civil rights issues to communicate to young people. The fight's not over. I mean, this fight for civil rights is not over when it comes to African Americans, when it comes to women. Those civil rights debates will continue to go, and very, very important civil rights issues on the ballot. So I encourage you, obviously, to be involved. But I think, again, the risk of being redundant, I think I can use my historical perspective, my livelihood, and then my maturing into an open-minded person who actually, I ran into a very, very quick, 10 seconds, I ran into a gentleman the other day who went to junior college with me. I have not seen him since 1968, an African-American friend. He goes, I went to junior college with you. You got me to read Eldridge Cleaver, Soul on Ice. And I said, well, I did. And from there, he graduated to James Baldwin.
All right, with that, our last question. Yes? No? Okay, we're done? Okay. I think I can release our panel. All right, you're released. Oh, no, okay. All right, audience, you're not released. You scared me for a minute there. I thought we were going to have to lock the doors. Let me turn the podium back over to your president, and let me say this was incredible. Thank you so much again to the League for hosting this. I know we all walked away learning something. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our moderator and to our panelists. That was just fabulous, just fabulous. So hopefully we will all go out and talk in a more effective way to our family, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors. And I'll just share with you, it was kind of touched on, my superpower is wonder, very close to the curiosity. And I would commend to you a rewording of WTF. I would suggest to you that when that comes into your mind, it should mean, wasn't that fascinating? This has been a well-timed refresher course for us, reminding us that we can disagree without being disagreeable, and that we can speak our truth without diminishing the humanity of another. Now, I hope that you will allow me just a few announcements. It is election season, and we are the League. So please make sure that you are registered, that you have a plan for voting, and that you are volunteering to get others out. Early voting has begun and continues until August 18th, and if you are an Orange County voter, you can go right across the breezeway here into the library where there is an early voting place. Please check out vote411.org and recommend it to your friends. We have yard signs available out at one of the tables. Check that out. And we have lots of other tables too, so please check all of that out. And on your table are clean water petitions. These, if you signed one last year, you need to sign again. This is for 2026, looking ahead. And we are always looking for ways to do better, so we ask for your feedback. You can look at the QR code that's up on the screen or the handout on your table for the link. Thank you to Cuisinart and the Winter Park Event Center for all that they do for us, and for TJ McCauley of X-Ray Studios, who does our filming and editing so that our topics are available to others on our league channel and on our website. So can we have a round of applause for all of those people who make this happen? There is no Hot Topics overtime today. Our next Hot Topic is on September 11th. Case for the prosecution, a state attorney's forum. Register starting tomorrow. We expect that to be well attended. And if you are not a member, please join us. For everyone, please volunteer, donate, and bring your friends. We are adjourned. Thank you.